Okay, leading up to Terminator Dark Fate, on Friday, I figured it might be a good time just to revisit the Terminator movies from the original up until the new one that's coming out. I might watch the first 3 episodes of Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles, just so I can, get like a full grasp of like basically everything, and maybe also the machinima thing when I do Salvation. But that really depends in a few days how I feel about it. Anyway, so first off, I'm gonna talk about Terminator, the original one. My feelings on this have changed quite a bit from when I was incredibly young. Because I used to actually think that this movie was really boring. I just thought that, oh yeah, two's where like the real story happens. Like, one's not that important. But now watching it this time, it's like, there's a lot in here that I actually really like. The first off being that the whole relationship between Kyle and Sarah is really interesting, and it kind of sets the groundwork for stuff that they'll do in the future. But I didn't actually realize how like nuanced it was until this viewing of it. It's a lot less action heavy than the future ones will, and it's more of a survival story this time around. Yeah, and I really liked that, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, I thought that it was a really, really nice story, and obviously, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator is the highlight, but, and the stop motion effects, even though, they're dated from today, if you go back to, what they were doing back at the time, it looks completely fine with what they were doing back then as well. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, obviously the story follows Sarah Connor, and in this one I think shows the progression from her being a scared, innocent person to right at the end of the movie she becomes this cold person who we see throughout the rest of the series and stuff. But yeah, this one is definitely a lot more important than what I originally gave it credit for 5 years ago. Yeah, because I haven't seen this movie since Genisys was new. But now I have again, and yeah, my opinion on it has completely changed. I thoroughly enjoy this movie. Of course, it's Terminator, everyone enjoys the first 1 and 2, and people's opinions are mixed on the others. Yeah, but what else can I say about this movie? Arnold's great in it. Yeah, there's not really much else I can say. It's just a really, really well done film with a lot of potential for stuff going forward, and yeah, it just sets the groundwork for a lot of stuff that we'll see later on. Yeah, there's not really much else I can really say about it. So if you haven't seen this movie, I would definitely recommend it, because it's important. Even if you think it's boring when you're watching it, maybe go back and rewatch it after you watch the first one. Maybe you'll pick up on a lot. No, sorry, not after you watch the first one. After you watch the second one, Judgment Day, and maybe you'll pick up on a few things. If you're familiar with it, then you've obviously already seen it. You don't have to tell. You don't need me to tell you to go see it. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about it. Just go see it if you want. Yeah. Okay, Terminator 2. Okay, first, I'm just going to say this, is that this is pretty much the perfect sequel to the first Terminator movie. It does a lot of building of what was already there and just improving on it and expanding on a lot of stuff that was already there in the first film. Yeah. the main thing that I really want to focus on for this is like just how well executed this movie is, like in basically everything, in character development, in story, in special effects, in everything. It is such a well-made movie, and yeah, like first off, take the T1000 for instance, played brilliantly by Robert Patrick. He does a phenomenal job with what he's given, and as well as like on this, on like he's just a a ruthless killer in the same way that Arnold Schwarzenegger was in the first movie. Only he's a bit more menacing about it than just the dumb thug kind of thing that Arnold Schwarzenegger's was. Yeah. Speaking of the T1000 though, I don't know how the hell he managed to do it. Somehow they managed to make flawless effects look better 30 years ago than effects that Hollywood are using now. I don't understand how that's possible, but the effects still look friggin' flawless compared to, say, Gemini Man, for instance. Like, in fact, there's one moment I actually want to compare this to. You know the moment where the T-1000 goes inside the helicopter and then says, "get out" and stuff? Somehow, 30 years ago, they actually managed to make the mouth move properly to say "get out" when Will Smith in Gemini Man can't actually do that once when speaking. The mouth doesn't move properly, and it's not a fault of Will Smith. I know that it's more the visual effects team, but I just do not understand how they did a movie 30 years ago that looks so much better than this. The stuff that we've got today. It baffles me. Sarah Connor is another character that I want to touch on just a little bit in this movie. She definitely develops quite a bit from the first movie to the second. Like, you can see the sort of the start of her character in this at the very tail end of the first Terminator film, but it's not until this movie where you really see her really become like the badass hero that she is in this film. Like with the whole, from that movie, you're terminated fucker, and stuff like that. When she says that in the first movie, that's kind of the start of where she is in this. But then you can clearly tell that she's travelled quite a bit between then and when we pick up her story in Terminator 2. She's changed. She's quite clearly grown up and developed into who she thinks that she needs to be to raise John to be the hero that the future needs to lead the resistance. Yeah. What else can I say about this movie that isn't really spoilers? This movie is just brilliant at kind of subverting your expectations, because because obviously because of the first movie, everyone thinks Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to play the bad guy role and everything, and he's going to be the one that's going to hunt down Sarah and John to try and make Skynet actually happen and everything like that, and make them succeed if they wipe them out. But no, in this one, it's not for about the first 40 minutes of the movie that you find out really that it's the reverse of that. And that's just really, really well done, because I kind of feel when watching it, I was like, this is the type of movie that Rian Johnson wants to make. With the whole subverting expectations thing. So this is a really, really good case of it. It could have been done really, really poorly, but they actually took the time and everything, made sure that everything worked well and whatnot before putting it out. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a really, really well-made movie from beginning to end, and yeah, what else? John Connor, I suppose I should probably talk about next. He is probably the best child actor I've ever really seen. Like, I mean, I know the stuff with Edward Furlong now. I know, like, he isn't quite as good as what he was back in 1991, but he ain't a bad actor in this. Like, he's certainly, like, he's got some range in this movie, and that was really, really surprising to me. Like, because, like, like, usually, not every child actor can be like, Macaulay Culkin, for instance, you know? But this guy kind of was. And it really saddens me that, Edward Furlong didn't really do more stuff. I mean, I know he was in the Green Hornet movie, but apart from that, I don't exactly remember him doing much. Maybe he didn't want to do the Hollywood thing. Maybe. But anyway, yeah, this movie is fantastic from beginning to end, and it does a great job of building off what the first movie did, and improving on things that didn't really work, like the visual effects of, like, the T-800 Terminators in this. Like, you could tell, like, there was, like, kind of someone, like, from the angles that they did in the first movie, like, you could tell that, like, someone was, like, underneath the camera, like, turning it, making it move its head and whatnot, like, when it had no skill in it. But in this movie, no. Like, it's basically, like, full animatronic robot walking. Maybe there is puppetry, but I couldn't bloody tell. That's how flawless the effects are in this movie, both visually and special effects wise, like computer generated and just like practical effects. Yeah, not really much else I can say about this movie. It is phenomenal. In fact, I'd say if you haven't, which if you clicked on this video, you probably have already seen it. It's not like I have to tell you that Terminator 2 is such a good movie, but watch both of them back to back. Watch 1 and 2 back to back, and then, because while people have been trying to make a third one for years, I mean, I know there have been attempts at it and stuff. Like, obviously, there's more movies than just this, but these two movies work as companion pieces to one another, and they tell a complete story from beginning to end. And I don't think there's really any need for another one. But you know what? I like the Terminator, so I'm going to keep on watching them, and I think all of you guys will probably end up doing that too, or have already watched them. Yeah, this is just such a great duology of movies thus far. Yeah, definitely worth a watch, both of these. Phenomenal. Yeah, so that will pretty much wrap up my review, I believe. Yeah, and I will see you when I watch Terminator 3. Okay, bye. Alright, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. What can I say about this movie? Oh, I know what. You know how sometimes if you watch like a really, really well-made fan film, that just nails the aesthetic of something so well that you swear that it could just be part of the official continuity of something. That's what my feelings are towards Terminator 3, because there's something just off about it, and it's not the acting. I mean, because all of them are doing fantastic jobs playing the characters that that they've been dealt to play. The one thing that I would actually say though about that is the guy that plays John Connor. He's doing his best to try and do a more adult version of what Edward Furlong did in the last movie for John Connor. I don't know, it's just, he kind of seems off, like he's not actually as confident, which, I mean, I guess is probably part of the character, like, especially, like, when you actually consider, like, a line that he says in the movie about, imagine if you've been told that, you're going to do the most important thing that anyone has maybe ever done, but plenty of people have to die first before you can do it. Maybe that's the reason why he's playing a little more anti-social than, Edward Furlong did back then, because, he's obviously playing like an older version. He's had more life experience and stuff like that. But that's the only thing I'd really have to say about that. Because, like, I mean, I like this movie, but some things just off about it. I mean, obviously they got like it's obviously like if it was like a high end fan film, which I guess it kind of was. I think the people behind it are actually fans of the original two, and they wanted to make like a true sequel to it. But I don't know. There's just something about it that I'm just like, this just feels like a fan film that just got really, really lucky with the casting of Arnold Schwarzenegger, as well as Dr. Silverman. Actually, I think that's a nice Easter egg for fans. Actually having like Silverman, and then he actually realizes, and he's actually there for one of the attacks for the first bloody time. So he's probably like, maybe Sarah was right, and maybe there is something to this, and then he just runs away. Oh, that was a great moment. What else can I say about this? This movie kind of feels it's it's boring in parts because it's basically just retreading the same stuff from T1 and T2, except just again, and pretending it's in the same continuity and stuff. Except for the ending, the actual last 20 minutes is probably the best part of this movie, because it just builds up and builds up and builds up and builds up, and then it gets to a point that sets up perfectly for Terminator Salvation. I don't know if that was intentional or not. Actually, I don't think it was. Yeah. There's just so much to say about this. Right. Lady Terminator. The Terminatrix, or TX. It's interesting, but once again, it just feels like, a fan film more than anything. If I was to make a Terminator movie when I was 13 or 14, my first probably my first thought would have been, "Ooh, let's make the Terminator sexy," and that's what they kind of did in this movie. That's the whole reason. It could have been anyone really doing that, but because because it was Terminator 3, it was obviously someone's passion project probably. They made the Terminator sexy, and they the TX is kind of a combination. Not that there's anything wrong with doing that. I'm just saying that. Really, what's the point in that? Is it just to give, guys just something to look at? And to me, that's just kind of bad because, the movie should be enough for someone to look at. Not just relying on a hot chick, which, yeah, she was. Not gonna lie, but, I'm just saying that. Anyway, back on point. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I don't know. The TX is interesting because it's kind of like Arnold from it's kind of like the T800 mixed with the Terminator, the T1000 from Terminator 2. Except I don't know. It's just once again, it just feels fan filmy. That's my main problem with this movie, is that it doesn't actually feel like an actual film. It feels more like someone's fan film that just got lucky with the casting. Yeah. I don't think it's a bad thing for something to feel like a fan film because obviously, if someone's got passion behind it and stuff, and they want to go out and make their own movie to try and make an official sequel and stuff. But I don't know. There's just something off. The humor. There's too much humor in this movie. That's one thing I'll say. Yeah. There's nothing really much else I can say about this. Yeah, if you are a huge Terminator fan, I'd say watch this. It's not a bad watch by any stretch of the imagination, but it's still kind of it's not as good as what I remember it being back when I was 12. I remember really, really liking this movie back, way back when, and stuff. But I don't know. There's something off about this movie. It doesn't feel like
like an actual thing. Like, there's just too many moments I'm just like, James Cameron wouldn't have done that. Yeah, like, I don't really want anything too specific or anything, but I'm just like, there's something off about this film. Yeah. If you guys want to watch it, you can, but, I just say it's not as good as number 1 and 2. And I'm not saying, of course it's not going to be as good as number 1 and 2. Like, I mean, they are, like, perfect companion pieces to each other, and anything after that is probably just going to be, like, really, really, it's going to obviously fail in comparison to that. Yeah, anyway, yeah, Terminator 3. It's an alright watch, not exactly anything to, get excited over, really. Yeah, which is kind of unfortunate, because I was really looking forward to watching this again, because I was like, oh, maybe it's really, really good. No. It's not. It's alright. It's not awful. It's just not really as good as what I maybe thought it could have been. Because that's the thing, there's a lot of interesting ideas in this movie. But then, I don't know, there's just something, it just squanders a little bit, and it's just like, yeah, it's Terminator 3. Cool. Like, I mean, anyway, there's a lot of interesting ideas, just not very good payoff. That's what I'll say about it, without getting into too many details. Because that will probably extend out the runtime. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Terminator 3. It's okay.
Okay. So, Terminator Salvation. This is gonna be a bit of a, I don't know, not controversial, but I don't know really the right word for it, but many people aren't going to agree with me. That's what I'm going to say. So I guess it is controversial. I actually really like this movie. I have pretty much since the first time I watched it. I certainly enjoyed a hell of a lot more than I like Rise of the Machines. Because that movie... no, it isn't as fan-filmy as that movie is. Yeah. What else can I really say? I mean, no, let's scratch that, no. What can I say about this? Okay, it's... Timeline-wise, it's very, very strange, because it's both pretty much a direct sequel, well, not a direct sequel, but it definitely takes place after the events of Terminator 3. But also, with some of the stuff that it covers, it's a prequel to the first Terminator movie. And with that, I don't really know what to do with it, because, it hasn't really got prequelitis, as some of you may have heard that term before. But I don't know. It's a war movie for the most part. Like that's where the main focus of it is. And to be perfectly honest, it's great. It really is. Like, some of the things don't quite add up with what they established previously at first, but then you go back and think about it. Like, for instance, this is one time where in Terminator 1, Kyle Reese is saying about the skin jobs and stuff like that, about how they're T600s. Yeah, T600s. No, they look really fake with the skin on. And from what we see in the flashback, it looks like they tried that when he looks like Kyle Reese from then, not when he's a teenager. But then in this movie, we find out that, he met a T600 and he was very, very good at that and everything. And one of them was about to kill him, but then the T800 came along. I guess, time can be rewritten and stuff like that. Like, everything's in flux and whatnot, but it just really... that's how I can explain that. As they say, there is no fate except for what we make for ourselves. It's literally the main thing. Like, time can be rewritten. So even if it doesn't add up entirely with what was established previously,
I mean, Judgment Day didn't happen the exact same way that Kyle Reese said. They prevented Judgment Day, but, not entirely. They just prolonged it, really, as was said in Terminator 3. Anyway, when I say that it's, it doesn't really, it's a really, really good war movie, and, it kind of shows the struggle in the same way that really Rogue One did, if I'm being completely honest. Yeah. And, yeah, if you say the movies like Rogue One, or from a character point of view, especially, Sam Worthington's character, who I'll get onto in a second, you will probably if you haven't seen this movie, but you like the movies, as I said before, what was I going to say? What's the movie I literally just said? I'm going to have to start this again. No, I'm not, actually. I'm going to edit that part out. What was I going to say? Yeah, if you like the movie Blade Runner 2049, and the other movie that I said, which I actually don't recall off the top of my head, but I remember thinking it before, it'll probably come back to me. You'll probably really like this movie, because the Sam Worthington character really is a lot like Ryan Gosling's character in Blade Runner 2049. And I think seeing that movie, seeing this movie, you can definitely see the way they were inspired for that, but not necessarily it's not beat for beat, but you can see they took elements from this and put it into that. If they did, there's just a clear similarity there between their two characters, mainly because spoilers here for a 10-year-old movie. They both end up to be robots. Yeah. I really, really liked this movie a hell of a lot more than what I thought I was going to, because I remember when I first watched it, I was, I loved it back in 2009. I think I saw it for my birthday back then, and I loved it. And in fact, I brought the steelbook of it on DVD, because I was like, I really like this movie and I want to have it in a nice steelbook. And it was, yeah, and I still have that somewhere. I actually don't know where the hell it is right now, because I've got these movies 3 times. So I'm just watching it in a collector's, a collection set at the moment. Yeah, and then I think when I watched it with my current fiance, she didn't really like it, and I wasn't really liking it. I think it was, yeah, I don't know what the hell was going on, but then watching it this time, I was like, this is actually surprisingly good, because it's different than just, the retreading of the old information from the previous 3 movies, previous 3 movies, such as, Rise of the Machines did. This movie did a much better job of doing that. Sure, look, the Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't look perfect. Until, the skin comes off and everything, and it's just the actual T-800 skeleton, then it looks really good. But when it's just, very, very distracting, in a very, how do I put this? Grand Moff Tarkin kind of way from Rogue One. Oh, that's the movie I was saying. Yeah, Rogue One. It is very Rogue One meets Blade Runner 2049 in many senses, actually. Yeah, so if you like those 2 movies, you'll really get a blast out of this. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's different than what anything had actually happened before in the Terminator movies, or in anything Terminator related, really. It was a war film. It was a war set in the Cyberdyne versus Resistance war. It was great. I really, really enjoyed it, and I really wish we got to see more of this, rather than just, rebooting it, But yeah, so this is, to me, the final movie in the original continuity, and now they've tried to start off 2 or 3 continuities. We kind of failed at it, But yeah, so this is the end of the original continuity in my eyes. If you don't really agree with that, then that's fine. But this is the end of the original continuity, and it was a really, really good way to go out. Like, Kyle Reese in this, that's one thing I'll touch on before I finish this video. The final thing I'll say is, yeah, Kyle Reese, Anton Yelnats, who is such a shame that he's not with us anymore, because I've never seen him give a bad performance. Even in this movie, he seems like a younger version of I don't know his name, but he seems like a younger version of. I can see him growing up into Kyle Reese from Terminator, and that's really, really cool. Yeah, yeah. What else can I say? It's just a really, really fun film. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and if you're looking for something a little different, it's actually set during the war, this is probably the only thing you actually do have, but it's also not a bad watch either, so, it's good. It's good. If you enjoy the first two Terminator movies, or, as I said, Rogue One or Blade Runner 2049, then you can then you'll probably get something out of this in the way that I did. Yeah. So, if you guys like those films, go see it. Well, go watch it. I mean, not go see it because it's not in cinemas. Unless you have a time machine, then dibs. Oh, right. Terminator Genisys. This, in my mind, is, I don't know, the Terminator 3 that I think I've always wanted. When people usually talk about this movie, they usually say that it's just a rehash of the first film and the second film. It's like Terminator Greatest Hits. I don't entirely agree with that. It's a lot more than that, to me anyway. Like, don't get me wrong, there are certainly elements of like, hey, look at this, 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 remember this from the past, remember this? But there's enough of its own original story there that I don't actually think that it can be properly summed up as just Terminator's greatest hits. It reminds me a hell of a lot of the 2012 sequence in Avengers Endgame, in my personal opinion, where, like, you'd have a character, like, where you'd have, like, a kind of, like, alternate event to what actually happened in the original movies, or, like, an expansion of those original ideas and, like, what happened afterwards, or something like what could have happened but actually didn't happen if they had the effects at the time and stuff. Yeah. Or the budget. Yeah. For instance, like, like when Kyle Reese travels to 2017, 1984, when he, like, first, like, sure, like, there are shot-for-shot remake scenes, but there's enough different material in there that makes it its own unique thing, and this clearly isn't a different timeline to that one, which is actually very clever. So that just means that basically it doesn't mean that Rise of the Machines and Salvation didn't count. It just doesn't count as part of this new timeline that they're trying to establish. Yeah. One thing that I do definitely want to mention is Matt Smith. Not only because I'm a Doctor Who fan, like, I mean, by the time that, David Tennant's era was coming to an end, I was more or less done with this whole series, because I was like, it's just the same thing. But anyway, but then he rejuvenated it, so that's the reason why I'm a fan of his era. Well, Series 5 anyway. Anyway, back to the movie. He sticks out like a sore thumb. I don't know if it's just the fact that I'm such a fan of Matt Smith and stuff, but he does. It's just like, whoa, what the hell are you doing there? Like, I mean, he just sticks out. Like, even if he's in the background and stuff, I don't know. My eyes were just glued to him. I was like, what the hell are you going to do? Like, I mean, I've seen the movie before, obviously, so I knew. But even at the time, even when I first saw this movie, I was like, oh, that's Matt Smith. That's Matt Smith. What's he going to do? And like the menacing look and stuff. Like, I don't know if he, like, I know, like, he wasn't in the front ground and stuff, but it kind of just shows like how good of an actor he is, that even if he's in the background of the scene, your eyes are just glued to him. It's just like, what's going on here? Yeah, but the only thing I will say is that the one thing I've always had with Matt Smith is that I don't personally think that he can do a very good American accent. And that's not to say, like, okay, no, it's not that. It's just the fact that you can hear, and I'm sure I'm the same. I'm sure I'm exactly the same with this, but you can hear his original voice underneath. It's not like other actors and stuff. And like, look, I understand it's very difficult to do accents. I'm the first person to admit that. But I mean, like, it was just distracting for me because I'm just like, well, it sounds enough like his American accent, or like his British accent, but it's not like, say, Sam Worthington, for instance, when all he does is I mean, what's something I actually did notice about Salvation that I didn't bring up in my review is all that he does is basically like he slips very easily back into his Australian accent. And full credit to Matt Smith, he definitely doesn't do that. He's always American when he does his American accent. Yeah, I don't know. He's such a great actor. He's really, really menacing in this. It is great. Yeah. What else? I mean, look, yeah, like, you know, I like the John Connor thing. I completely forgot about it until I saw it. I was like, oh yeah, that was ruined in the trailer. My son is 3 years and I think 3 months now. But like when he gets to a certain age, I would love like for him like not to see like any of the trailers and anything like that. But then to actually just show him that and just see how bloody mind-blowing it is. Because I could see that actually happening. You know, like, you see John Connor and stuff, and then you just like, he's here? What? And then it's revealed that he's a robot. BAM! Right in there. That is such a good idea. I just really wish that the trailers didn't ruin it. And I know this is an argument from like, this is like an argument from like 5 years ago at this point. But I really do think that it would have been better if that wasn't actually just revealed. But anyway, yeah, I personally prefer this to Rise of the Machines. I know many people probably don't. They probably think like, oh, this is so bad. It's not. I really, really enjoyed this direction. Like, I mean, hell, the one thing I will actually say that I like about this movie the most is that it expands on the idea that Terminator 2 set up about Arnold Schwarzenegger's T-800 being a father figure to a Connor. That's so good, and this one just basically does it, but he does it in like a quirky kind of, you know, not taking any crap, kind of, you know, like you know, tough dad kind of way. That it's just really funny. Like he's got so many good moments, and Arnold Schwarzenegger just steals it in this movie. I mean, this may be the most different performance of his. Like, sure. Arguably, you could see that Terminator 2 and Terminator 3, he was basically doing the same performance. And then this, it just adds another layer to it, because, you know, he's had to, you know, basically teach Sarah Connor everything. So he's got that kind of, you know, maternal bond with the with Sarah Connor, and that's just fascinating to me. It's such a good idea. And much in the same way that Terminator 2 did, this could easily have been the final film. It wraps up everything, and I think that actually like brings it to its... It does the same thing that Terminator 2 does. It ends the story. Sure, it does another story, but it just ends the story. Unlike the original Terminator 3, it kind of picks up from a place and then has basically a cliffhanger for Salvation, you know, with the whole nuclear holocaust. This is the ending. This is the ending, like Terminator 2 was the ending originally. There's no need for anything else, which is probably for the best, actually, even though there are little hints to stuff for the future. Yeah, I just really, really enjoy this movie. It's really good. I enjoyed it a hell of a lot more than what I thought I was going to, because I was kind of dreading it, because I remember really, really liking it at the time, and my opinion hasn't really changed. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Yeah, this is the Terminator 3 that I can accept. I don't know about Dark Fate. I'm seeing it tomorrow, so I'll probably report on that after I, watch it tomorrow night. But yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah. So what do you? So now that this whole video has wrapped up and everything, what are your thoughts on the Terminator movies, and including Sarah Connor Chronicles, which I haven't actually seen yet, but I'm going to actually wait until later because I've got a hell of a lot of Star Wars and Batman stuff to watch, as well as the Arrowverse stuff, as well as trying to find a job and stuff. So, yeah. I'd really like to hear your opinions, and I will report back to you tomorrow with Dark Fate. Yeah, anyway, take care, guys. Bye.